Aloha and welcome to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. The podcast where two dudes plus one this week talk everything green and gold. I'm Mike, that's Iowa Joe, and Joe, we have a guest. Please introduce our guest for this week.
Well, this is somebody that I've talked to on Twitter a few different times. We've had a little bit of back and forth, but it's Miranda, who's a Miranda Marie. I'm assuming that's your last name,
My middle name, but
middle
yeah.
name. Okay,
Yep,
all
fair
right.
enough.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't know. Mike didn't give me the notes, and I'm not the note person, so.
no worries.
But she's a contributor for NFL Draft Countdown, the 2 minute drill, and whatever else you want to know about on Twitter. So it's
Yeah.
great to have you on what could be probably our last ever episode, depending on what the outcome is next week. Uh, you know, I'm
When he
not
says
looking.
our, he just means you'll find a different co-host depending on the outcome.
This is probably the start of auditions already. So we'll see what happens from there. But no, Miranda, it's great to have you on. Like I said, I know we've had our back and forth on Twitter a few
Yeah.
different times, so it's finally good to see your face and have you on with us to talk.
Yeah, it's fun to. I know. I feel like I've definitely interacted with you both on Twitter for quite a while, and it's always fun to actually meet your Packer buddies and your mutuals. Meet whatever.
Yeah, on Twitter or
Yes,
X
I
or
know.
whatever the hell it's called anymore.
Yeah, I
So
know. Whatever it is.
the Elon machine is what I
Yeah.
tend to call it. So, but unfortunately, we're not talking draft this time. So we'll have to
We'll save
deal
it.
with the Packer victory that we just had on Thanksgiving
Well,
Day.
amazing.
So, Mike, you want to get into it a little bit so we don't keep Miranda here way too long like we normally tend to?
It was a happy Thanksgiving for Packers fans. I know it was the early game, and I always laugh when they have to say like it's an early start. They're all early starts for me, but
That's true.
I mean, we finally got to see one of those games where the offense really seemed to break through, and it goes without saying that it was impressive on so many levels. We'll get into Jordan's game, we'll get into the game LaFleur called. The other part of it though is like just to remember the run game was a big question mark going into Thursday's game. No Aaron Jones. Emmanuel Wilson goes on IR. They're elevating. Patrick Taylor gets signed off of his couch while he's on the bye week for the Patriots. James Robinson gets called back from Kroger's to get back on the practice squad. And yeah, it was a piece it together game on the ground. And Jordan Love had his best game as a pro. I know he threw for more yards against the Chargers, but I think in terms of what the situation was going into a as hostile of a road environment as they'll really face this season. And he had the best game of his career, in my opinion. And I think that's just the easiest way to start it off there. But Joe, Miranda, who would like to go first on your thoughts going off of that?
I will be completely transparent, and I don't know if this makes me just a realistic person, which I typically am, or a bad fan, or a little bit of both. But I went into this game just ready for a bloodbath, like in the worst possible way. I don't know. Like the Chargers game, I felt like we kind of escaped. Yes, we kind of saw some flashes of greatness, and I was like, okay, like offensively, I'm pretty happy. They had a few drops that kind of made the defense look nice. So I just didn't. And again, with the injuries, like you mentioned, with like Jonesy hurt and Manuel Wilson out, I was just like, oh man, if we can't get a ground game going, like our passing game is going to struggle. What's our offensive line going to look like? And just everything just gelled together in a way that I just wasn't even sure was possible this season, which was fantastic.
Well, and on top of that, they were even saying that Dylan was injured.
Right.
He had like a groin or
Yeah.
something that he was dealing with. So yeah, the run game was a big question mark. So
Yeah.
I agree. I didn't think it was going to be like a horrible loss. I figured, because Detroit always seems to, with the way they struggled against
True.
Chicago, but I didn't think it was going to be a win. And, it was a hell of a surprise. So,
Yeah.
I completely agree with your assessment on that.
It's a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
But I guess we had something on our
scrub
side.
The same potato. I was ready to scrub the same potato for an hour just to not watch the game because
Right?
I think we were like you said, Miranda, we were all being realistic.
Yeah.
Like the deck was definitely stacked against it on
Sure.
paper, and I know that's why they play the game, but
Yeah.
it absolutely looked like a stacked deck. And I know that I've got a bunch of friends from when I went to University of Michigan who are Lions fans, and they've had their concerns and complaints about the team and stuff, but that was the thing, is that short of Jordan Love playing the best game of his career by far, that was what it was going to take, and fortunately for Packers fans, that's what we got. So I mean, it goes without saying, like I said, Jordan was he was heat checking himself the whole game basically. Starts it off with a 53-yard shot play to Christian Watson, and that was sort of the theme of the day, is that Jordan Love, he kept skying his ceiling higher, and Christian Watson had the bounce back game that he absolutely needed on this season. So just by the counting stats, Jordan goes for 22 of 32, just over 66% passing, big one that everyone was kind of pointing out this whole season. 260 yards, 8 touchdowns, no sacks, which was a big one compared to the week 4 shellacking this team took on Thursday Night Football, the first time these two teams met. And Watson accounted for 94 of those yards on 5 catches. And I don't believe so he had 7 targets, ended up with 5 catches. I believe the 2 misses were the one with the egregious no call wave off the flag, which all pictures from after the game make it look even stupider to wave off that flag.
Well, then with the one that was later on the game that they called for Detroit, that was basically the same play. So the officiating crews this year has been
inconsistent, to be kind.
That's the problem. I mean, if you're gonna, it doesn't make it okay if you make bad calls, but if you're gonna make these ticky-tack calls or you're gonna do no calls, it's like, just do it freaking consistently. It's all I care about. Within one game, within 1 3-hour span, call it the same.
Just that's what we always say with baseball umpires. If you're going to make this call for this team, then make it for that one, to at least stay consistent and keep it fair. But it just I don't know. Like I said, this whole year has been really, and not just for the Packers. It's been throughout the whole
it's league. Been zany all over the league. And so, but Jordan overcame all of that on Sunday or Thursday. I'm going to say that a few times.
I know.
But no, like we've seen him get an uptick in, and it's not just like plays are happening around him. He is definitely the driving force in a lot of it. He's looking a lot more decisive in his reads as he goes through his progressions within the offense. His ball placement has just ticked up substantially the past month. That's one of the big ones, and that's what we kind of said as over the course of the season, is like, it's great that you see the highlight plays, even in week 1 against the Bears, but it's what is he doing in between those highlight plays that's going to determine if he is the quarterback of the future or if he's just another guy that you got to replace in a year kind of thing. So, and, he definitely took a dip in the middle of the season. He was missing throws early, and then it became he was throwing bad interceptions in the middle of the season. But then now you're seeing him, like we kind of said it last week about the Chargers game, where he didn't have, maybe 2 or 3 of those like, oh my God plays. But in between, there was a lot more just, that's a good throw. That's a good throw. Yes. That's a good play. That's a good play. Whereas this week against Detroit, it was more of that, but there were more of those like, as much as Joe and I try to stay away from it, where you're saying, well, who does that remind you of? Kind of plays and stuff like that. So, and and more to Jordan's, to be fair to Jordan, you don't want to just compare anything and everything he does to either of the 2 guys that came before him, but it really does just up the ante that he's looking great, better and better. But Miranda, from your point of view, how are you liking the Jordan Love experience over the past, not just on Thanksgiving, but over the past 4 weeks, the progression we've seen?
Yeah, I really do think, I don't know, like exactly, I guess if I'm really thinking back, like you said, the Bears game, maybe they're just ass and whatever. we just looked, I don't know. I was so excited for this the whole season after that game, but whatever. But I feel like maybe it was like that Rams game about a month ago that really kind of like the floodgates opened and everything you just saw like little pieces. It was like he kind of started getting with like Luke Musgrave that game. And, that game we actually did a little bit more running, and AJ Dillon kind of had a couple good games and kind of dropped onto the Steelers. That one hurt. Kind of feel like we should have won that game, and we won't get into the refs on that one, but whatever. But it's been super fun he's always looked comfortable, right? Like his poise is there. It's been there since day one, which is wild, but like he just is playing better with that same like comfort. And it's so fun to watch him succeed. It's so fun to root for the kid.
I think one of the big differences I'm seeing is you could tell early on in the season when he would get excited because he saw a play open up. And that's when you would see him kind of force the ball or overthrow the ball or undercut the ball or whatever. And now you're seeing him, okay, take a breath, make the throw.
Yeah.
Now, we did kind of see it a little bit with the Watson first play that Mike was talking about, where if he would have led Watson a little bit more, it would have been a one-shot touchdown.
Oh, it would have been easily.
But, it still was a great play. So that's been the biggest thing that I've seen so far, is that he's starting to calm down. Like Mike said, that he's also making the reads a little bit better. But I think we also have to say that the receiving core is starting to get better for him.
Yes.
It's getting to where it seemed like Mike and I were saying every week that, okay, well, these guys were running the wrong route, or they were running the route together. And, so now it seems like everything's gelling a little bit more. Even my guy, Malik Heath, is starting to get his opportunities a little bit more. So it's really great to see that start stepping up.
I agree.
So it's the whole team is gelling. And another thing is, I really like the fact that LaFleur is opening up the playbook a little bit more.
And he's playing like aggressively a little bit. Like he's not just playing his old school, like kind of conservative playbook. He is really getting into his bag a little bit. And that's what we thought we were getting like from the beginning. And it's hard with Rodgers there to even like totally know. But now it's like, now we really see what he can do with this young, new quarterback.
And let's talk some stats here, because I know we're not really stat guys.
That's okay.
Per se, but
bring it on.
What's funny is people are still kind of down on Jordan Love. Oh yeah, he's meh or whatever. But one of the guys, and I saw this as a tweet, and I wish I could find who actually tweeted this out, but they did a side-by-side comparison with the guy that they're talking about in MVP contention and Jordan Love. Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. All right. Completions. Hurts is at 224. Love is at 225. Attempts. Hurts is at 327. Love is at 372. So the percentage is a little off, but they're still above 60% for completions. But then you look at yards. Hurts is at 2,497 yards. Love is at 2,599 yards. Then touchdowns. Love has 19. Hurts has 15. Interceptions. Hurts has 9. Love has 10. So
just threw his 10th.
Yeah. So, did he just throw his 10th?
Yeah.
So we're even looking at a little bit closer there too. And then sacks. Hurts has been sacked 27 times compared to Jordan Love's 22 times. I mean, you take a look at the guy that people are putting as the MVP and a guy who people are shitting on. Yeah. And they're relatively the same.
And with like less to work with, arguably, and a way younger supporting cast. I mean, it is hard to
have. Yeah, Jordan does not have either an AJ Brown or a Devonta Smith. So yeah, it's a little bit different.
He doesn't have a Lane Johnson. He has a Lane Johnson, a Jason Kelsey. Like, that's insane. I mean, those numbers are.
And I think somebody else did it with Patrick Mahomes too, and I think they're even relatively close with Mahomes also. Yep. But I'm not going to take the time to look at it because why waste the time at the moment? But
I said that. You're right.
So I mean, Now, am I ready to crown him the next great? No. We've said for the longest time, and it's a common thing. Let's see the stack successes. Let's see how he progresses through the year. Let's see what he does into the next year. Am I ready to give him a contract now? No. But I know if they don't do it soon, if he does go off, it's going to cost him way more money.
100%.
So we'll see what happens. I do, and I know this is looking way, way ahead, but I'm trying to get this out there that I'm going to call it. I'm calling my shot. I still think that they're going to take a quarterback in the second round. They have two. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I hate to say this, but if you look at the parallels between Rodgers' first year and Love's first year, everything is going the same. Their stats are looking the same. The year is going the same. Everything else is going the same. Well, the first year Rodgers took over, that year they took Brian Braum and they took Matt Flynn. So I could see this year, if somebody falls into the second round, the Packers have 2 second rounders. They could have more. Who knows what the trades and everything else that could happen. I honestly think that they could go with a quarterback in the second round with one of their spare second rounders.
I don't hate it at all. I think it's never a bad thing to have a plan B. You just look at all these injuries that we've seen. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you're like, okay, there's a crowd of people calling for Sean Clifford, but really when it came down to it eye roll. Is he really going to step in and just like be Jordan Love? Like,
I think a lot of people like the Clifford in the preseason was being a little bit more proactive with his stuff, whereas Jordan was being a little bit more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
But let's face it, if Jordan has had more time in the system than Clifford has, so if anybody's going to get it a little bit more, then Love is going to get a little bit more. But and I'm not saying Clifford can't be that backup guy.
Sure.
But I still think that there's going to be, because what, Mike, you probably know a little bit better than I do, but this year's QB class is kind of deep, isn't it?
It's pretty deep. Good. It's There's gonna be guys in the second round. It really is just gonna come down to who comes out this season. That's really the question that remains to be answered. So, like, we'll go into it. I'm sure we'll have Miranda on again. But like, one of the theories I have is like whoever declares first of like the guys who are jockeying for position to be quarterback 3 behind Caleb and Drake May, you might see one of the guys who don't declare stay back to be QB, to have the chance to be QB1 in 2025 kind of thing. So, like just for the sake of argument, let's say like JJ isn't the first because he's still playing past next week kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then just name whoever you want to that's in line to potentially be QB3, like Jaden Daniels or something like that. He declares and is like, oh, okay, well, I could go anywhere from like 15 to 45 kind of thing. Or if I come back and have another great season, I might go first overall. And so, the prospects do play those kind of like mental hula hoops and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see, but it just, I definitely know what you're talking about, Joe, where they're probably going to take another quarterback sooner than later. But what this recent trend of game really helps the Packers with is that Jordan, like you said, he might not be a Hall of Famer, but he looks like a starter with more upside. And that's really all you could hope to see at this point going through the season. Because if he shows that and like the floor is I said it all along, is like if you get Jordan Love playing like Kirk Cousins but with more upside by the end of the season, that's just monumental for this team, because then you're comfortable. And who knows, I get the feeling them are comfortable either way. It's just a matter of semantics, process, whatever word you want to throw at it when they do hand out the extension. But especially if the production on the field matches what they see in practice, what they believe in, all of those intangible off the field things, then roster construction becomes so much more simple because you don't have to find that quarterback again. So you can use those, what are they now, like top 85 picks or whatever, depending on whatever happens with this Bills Eagles game tonight. So then you have all of that to you either pick 5 top 100 players, you move around to get a third, second round pick. You got a lot of options to kind of jump some extra hurdles and try to accelerate the rebuild or reshuffle, whatever adjective you want to put on it.
Yeah. Everybody knows my feelings. We can trade the third round picks for the next millennium for.
Yeah, we don't need to go down.
I don't. I mean, yeah.
Sean Ryan's beautiful body and Tucker Kraft's hair are going to turn that trend around.
I think so. Yeah, honestly, they may have broken the curse.
Sean Ryan gives me such 80s wrestler vibes. It's ridiculous.
I saw your post. That was funny. I agree.
Oh, I every time I look at him, I think, is that an 80s wrestling locker room?
I know.
Or whatever?
He doesn't look like a 2023, 20 something. Like, it's just so funny.
Well, on top of that, now we know why the steroid use, because it really didn't give him rip or anything. It gave him the bulk like an 80s wrestler too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sorry, Sean. I really am. I should lay off the PED references, but you're going to get it for the rest of your life because you weren't even on the active roster for the whole time that you took it. But yeah, I mean, I've always had high hopes for Kraft. Mike and I have talked about this for the longest time, and I'm glad he got it, and we'll talk about it here in a minute, but I'm glad he finally got his first touchdown, unlike what Baldinger said last week. Yeah. But I've always felt like he was the more all-around type guy that was going to do what they kind of hope Musgrave can do with the break the tackle and stuff like that. I like Musgrave. I think he's a hell of a talent, but we need to stop asking for him to break a tackle. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing him for the rest of the year with his lacerated kidney.
For a while.
But I think we're in good hands with Tucker. I think that Ben Sims could be something else. He looked pretty solid.
Yeah.
In his limited snaps too. Just as long as we keep DeGuara off the field, I think I'm good.
Your cousin had a good game too, Joe. So now
they've
got options.
I keep saying
Joe's Calabash cousin got his first game, and he looked pretty solid out there too.
He's got a hell of a last name, man. That's a regal last name.
Very nice.
But and we kind of alluded to it earlier in this segment, but a big reason for Jordan's uptick and LaFleur opening up the playbook is the skill position. The young skill position guys are taking a step up in their game. I do think Watson having a bounce back game, people are like, oh my God, like he finally, I was like, I think he's just healthy now. And I think that's part of the reason why Love's throw was a little short is because Watson, all the way back to when he had the big broken play catch against the Raiders, you're kind of like, shoot, like a year ago, he scores on that play. And you've seen it in other times where you're kind of like, people would say like, he's not running 100%. I was like, I think he is. That's just what 100% is right now. And then on Thursday, you kind of saw him be that, 0 to 60 athlete again. Yeah. And I think that was part of why Jordan's throw was a little off is because he's like, I've been throwing to a guy who's been running at like 3/4 of his ability for, the whole season. And then now it's like, like he can go and get it kind of thing again. Yeah. So Watson and that's the thing is like, everyone asks like, what was the plan? And I was like, well, I can definitely tell you the plan was not for Watson and Dobbs to get hamstring injuries on the eve of the season. Like it was like, I'm almost certain the plan was you got 2 receivers that you really like from last season that you're going to build the offense around. And then you have mostly Reed and Musgrave, and that have particular roles that you're like, you guys learn these things in the playbook. You're going to do these 12 things for the first. We'll give you time to learn the rest of the playbook and fill in the blanks afterward. And then Christian and Romeo go and get injured in the last week leading up to the regular season. It's like, okay, let's just try and make this work. So I think,
who's this guy?
Yeah. Like you said, Miranda, the Rams game did feel like a turning point because it felt like the first time where the receiving room had a clean game on the field where kind of like Joe said, you didn't see guys, kind of running like the Three Stooges into each other out on the field. You didn't have, like plays where Jaden Reed is like hopping and yelling at Christian Watson because he's like, "What are you doing here?" Of course, we say that, and the first touchdown from Thursday was a play where everyone kind of was like, "We don't want to say his name, but someone ran the wrong route." But other than that play, and of course, for once on the season, it just works for the Packers. Other than it like falling in between four people or like bouncing off two helmets into a defender's arms, but you see that it helps Jordan be more decisive when he hits the top of his drop, and he's like, "Yeah, there's someone where they're supposed to be right now." Not like, wait. Where's my guy? Oh shoot, he's standing next to the sideline over there. Bail.
And we throw it into triple coverage, and YOLO. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so
that doesn't work. So
it just, I think it was always a moving target. Like I said, the things that were supposed to be reliable, sure things all got hurt within the first week and a half of the season, and. The only one who was able to play was Dobbs after week 1, and he was still on one leg at that point. So I think what you're seeing now is, when they hit the Rams game, was that week 8 or 9 or whatever, that's where you sort of saw like the receivers' learning curve met where LaFleur wanted it to be. And from that point, he's like, okay, I can call everything in the playbook. It's not, everyone's like, he calls the game so bland, he calls it so vanilla. I was like, I don't think that's by choice. It's like I've got 4 guys out on the field, and I don't know which one is gonna run the right route this time. So it's just a bigger step in the right direction, and it just gives everyone confidence, because when you're a receiver and you know what you're doing out there, you're like, okay, I know exactly where I am. I'm supposed to be on this spot, whatever yards downfield, and I'm supposed to be looking for the ball, kind of thing. And Jordan therefore can be like, okay, maybe we have leakage on the O-line, but I know I can buy enough time to make some throws to get it to guys. And we saw that some of the throws to Malik Heath, some of the throws to Dobbs, almost the throw to Watson that would have just iced the game away at the end. And as much as fun as it's been to watch Love grow his game this season, and just, like I said earlier, be the guy that the front office expected him to be, it's been that much fun to see the young receivers grow their game as well. So, and like you said, Joe, Tucker Kraft got his first touchdown, and that, I think the picture that says it all is Watson celebrating it when the ball's still touching the rafters as it's coming down to him and stuff. But I mean, for the two of you, like, for me, that's one of the most exciting parts of a season, especially one like this where we're not expected to be Super Bowl contenders. But how exciting is it to see the young guys on this roster stepping up into roles that maybe they weren't expected to be in, or like they are filling the shoes we hope they would have filled this season?
It's again, not to be like extra realistic, but I just was putting myself in the position, like, don't expect too much. They're young, especially with all of our injuries and like multiple position groups, not even just talking wide receiving core, like, our secondary is all like, they're all like 14 years old right now. Our O-line is, they're babies, and it's just so bizarre because like they're really starting to all just, it works right now. And it's amazing to actually see that. And to your point, it kind of gives everyone else confidence. And then that all just kind of like adds extra, firepower moving forward. Cause they're like, oh wait, I'm good. I'm going to have protection. So then Jordan's good. But then he's like, and my guys are going to run the good routes and the right routes. And it all just kind of gels together. And then Matt LaFleur, the cherry on top is he's like, all right, let's freaking go. I can call these fun ass plays that I really couldn't call maybe weeks 1 through 8, just to try to simplify the playbook. And so it's really, really cool to watch. And it kind of makes you like salivate and go, oh my God, like, what are we going to see this week and next week? And is it going to get better? Did we see the peak of it right now? Like, it's exciting.
Well, next week will be the real test, because that's the Chiefs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
their defense is insanely good.
Yeah, and of course you got Mahomes on the other side.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just go through the rest of the year thinking we're all going to take losses on them and just
Right.
maybe, do the reverse psychology on it.
I'm here.
But yeah, like I said earlier, this young team is finally starting to gel.
Yeah.
Even, we'll get to the defense here in a minute, but even on the defensive side, these younger guys are starting to gel a little bit more. But I know we got to talk about it. The offensive line, I really, I know that. How do I want to put this and sound diplomatic? Well, not diplomatic, but I'm still a John Runyon Jr. believer.
Okay.
I'm thinking our whole O line has taken a step backwards the last 2 years. So
Sure.
there's some kind of issue that's happened. Was it Stinovich has been moved out of the offensive line group? Is, obvious you can't really put everything on Bakhtiari either because, last year we were without Bakhtiari for the
Yeah.
majority of the season.
Hmm.
So there's something there that these guys have all taken a step back. Yash even has taken a step back. I thought he had one of probably his worst games Thursday, just because it seemed like every other time, or maybe it was against the Chargers, but it was one of the games that it just seemed like every time I looked, he was getting, spun around or he was missing his block or whatever. And it just, luckily, it didn't hurt the Packers too bad when it happened.
Hmm.
But it's just that whole offensive line isn't meshing like it should. Now, they did a lot of good things here. I think at one point they even had 3 offensive linemen blocking Hutchinson. So,
I was shocked. Yeah. I was like, what? What am I watching?
right. I still think Runyon gets brought back on a short, contract. I don't think he's going to get big money anywhere he goes, but they'll bring him back on a short 2-year, like a Lucas Patrick or Lane Taylor or
Hmm.
whatever. Maybe it is time to throw Ryan out there just to see what he can do,
Yeah.
and go from there. I do kind of wish they would stop the rotation of Walker and Yosh and just go, all right, this game here is yours. This game here is yours.
Me
If
too.
something happens in the middle of the game, then we can rotate you.
Right.
But no, just this game's yours. This game's yours. We'll call it good. I'm still not, and I know I keep jumping to the draft, but really I'm not. I'm trying not to think playoffs just because I don't think it's there. But if it happens, it's great.
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still, and friend of the show Joey Van Zimmerman is, I think, working on an article about this, but I'm still not sold on them taking an offensive tackle in the first round. I their bread and butter is not first round offensive linemen.
No, it's
Their bread and
defensive
butter,
stuff. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I think this could be one of the rare years that they even go maybe a playmaker of some type, whether it's a secondary safety type or something on
Yeah.
the offense. But I like I said, I'm not really sold on offensive line, and Ken Ingalls had a great succession of tweets the other day where you're paying Bakhtiari no matter what. You
Yeah.
trade him, you pay him. You cut him, you pay him. The only way they get out of it, I think, is if he retires, but they still have to pay him a certain amount of money if he retires.
Hmm.
If this last procedure did what it's done that he's hoping it's done for him, throw him out there. What's the worst that's
Right.
going to happen? He's not going to be
Right.
able to play another year. Then he
Right.
just retires because he knows he can't do it.
Yeah.
But I know you still got to build your succession plan after
Sure.
him because he's not going to be on the team forever. But that's when you take your guy in the 4th round or the 5th round that you throw out there that,
Yeah.
okay, well, you're just going to sit behind Bakhtiari and learn, and you're going to go out there whenever we need you to go out there.
Hmm.
So we need to start putting regularity on the offensive line. I know injuries have hurt it, but if Walker is the guy that you want out there, leave him out there. Don't rotate him.
I
If
agree.
Ryan is the guy you want out there,
Yeah.
take him out or put him out there. Take Runyon out. I know Mike has that Runyon might have got dinged up on the 63-yard attempt.
Because Ryan only played like 15 snaps or something, like 15 or 20 snaps, so he wasn't getting rotated in until the second half of the game.
So maybe that's something that you can say, all right, John, just, we're going to dress you, but you just sit down, you relax, take care of whatever it is. Sean, go out there, power slam somebody, put them through a table, whatever you got to do. I don't care.
Hulk smash, yeah.
And on that note, this is the week to do it because they've had their bye already, and this is the mini bye. This is their second mini bye of the season.
True.
So if you're gonna make but then the counter to that is, well, you're playing the Chiefs this week, but you're at home. You're coming off an extra 3-4 days of work that you've got in the office. And it's like, if you're going to make that kind of a move, this is the time because, like you've got the extended period to kind of work on it. So if you're going to do it, like you said, Joe, if you're going to do it, just jump in with both feet at this point. No need to like kind of keep, beating around the bush on it. Yeah.
What better game to do it than Kansas City? Instead of doing the rotation, keep your guys out there because with the rotation, you're not going to be able to do your fast pace.
Yeah.
Because now we got to wait for Yash to get out there.
Stop and switch and
Whereas I think what they need to start doing with as well as they have been gelling on that side is keep up the pace. Go out there, do some no huddle, do some quick throws, do some quick snaps. Just get out there, get on the ball, and make plays. I mean, you can't keep Kansas City off the field, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we know the defense is going to give up points. There's no doubt about it. I know the stat is they haven't given up 25 since week 4 or whatever, but that's not going to continue. I don't care. I'm still not a Joe Barry believer. The defense has done okay things, but I'm still not a believer in the system. It would break my heart if he left, but I would still say Phil Parker would probably be the best guy to have as the Packers defensive coordinator. And
I'm good with anybody at this point. I'm so done with him.
But it's what we're going to have to do with Kansas City, and Mike and I will talk about this more in the review, is just keep them off the field, keep the offense rolling. Maybe you got to do what you did against the Lions, and instead of deferring the kick, take the kick and, at the beginning of the game and hope you score points on that drive and then just keep pounding away at it. But, just to kind of finish up with the offensive line, keep them the same. Don't rotate them, especially against Kansas City. If you want to do that, do it later on, Bears, Vikings, whatever games we got left going on. You can do it then because then you can get cutesy with it because their quarterback is not going to beat you like Mahomes could.
Yeah, it's time to kind of make a decision. And like you said, Runyon might be back because he might not have much of a market outside, but you don't know that. And you've got a guy in Ryan who is here for at least 2 more seasons. So play the guy that's going to be here. But that'll put a bow on the offense, unless either of you have any more thoughts. But I feel like we've touched all the bases on this one. It was a great day at the office for LaFleur's side of the ball. Like we said, kept the ball rolling. Jordan looked awesome, brought his A game. And even though he brought his A game, there's still, I think, another level he can definitely get to. I think JT O'Sullivan pointed out a lot of it's minor technical things that he can work on. And I do think, especially with Clements as his QB coach, he's got a chance to really button down a lot of little aspects of his game that'll just take his efficiency up, and that'll just button up a lot of the in-between plays like we were talking about earlier. But from the side of the ball we're excited about, the side of the ball no one wants to talk about anymore, the defense. But it's not all bad. What the reason that the defense looked good this week is, like Miranda kind of pointed out last week against the Chargers, it was the Chargers who dropped 4 passes that would have monumentally changed the game, the complexion of that game in week 11 in Lambeau, where, if Donald Parham Jr. catches that 4th down pass, he's probably still running to Appleton at this point. And if Keenan Allen makes 2 catches that, Herbert couldn't have put it in his chest any better, that game has a completely different complexion to it. But at the very least on Thursday, at least it was the Packers guys making the plays as opposed to being gifted opportunities. Rashawn, I can't say it enough to what that game must have meant for him basically a year after you blow your knee out, your career is in question at that point. You're going into a contract year.
Like how?
You go back to the spot of the crime, and you have the game of your career. 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 you recover, 1 that Mr. Biles returns for a touchdown. It was a day for Rashawn, and I joked with friend of the show, Jacob Westendorf, because he's a Wolverines fan too, that Rashawn knows what week it was. He knows it was Ohio State Michigan week because they had him matched up against Taylor Decker, who is an Ohio State grad, and he took him to the woodshed, and Decker could not handle Rashawn at all on Thursday. And even on the other side of that, and I was pretty pissed off at Matt LaFleur. That play that Preston made, I don't care if he would have lost the challenge. I thought it was pretty clear what Preston did on that play. I thought he had the Julius Pepper 3-in-1 special where got around, got the sack, forced the fumble, and recovered it. And I was so mad that LaFleur or whoever is supposed to tell LaFleur to challenge it didn't, because the mechanics of that play is he has to challenge it. It's not reviewed because the play starts before the 2-minute warning. That play is under the challenge flag jurisdiction. So I don't know if LaFleur thought incorrectly it was supposed to get reviewed or whatever. Somebody should have told it, because he had the whole timeout, the whole 2-minute timeout to be like, throw the flag, Matt. And it would have saved the 2-minute warning. They would have gotten 9 more yards of field position, and Preston would have had that extra stat to his name. And it would have just, instead of it being just the quarterback pressure, it would have further shown how much the Packers front finally had a day against this Detroit O-line, because we've been saying it for the last 2 years where it's like, yes, Detroit might have the best O-line in the NFL, especially with Lane Johnson still injured for the Eagles. But for the first time since the 2021 week 2 game, the Packers front had a day against this offensive line for the Lions. And I think it is what made Barry look like he had a good day in the office, because Goff is having a great season because that O-line is so good. And for the Packers defensive front to have the day it did, you had Kenny Clark just plowing dudes into the backfield all day. Carl Brooks looked like he was playing against MAC competition again. Kobe Wooden almost had a safety. I thought that TJ Slayton was controlling the center whenever he was in the game. And so it was just a great day up front, I thought, for the most part. And it really set the tone for the rest of the game. But I mean, outside of that, you had Jonathan Owens. He had a rough first drive of the game, but he really stepped it up outside of that. He had a really nice day, obviously scoring the big touchdown, but he had a couple other nice plays where he crashed on the run from the perimeter. And our favorite round 7 safety, Joe, from the Cyclones.
He was hitting. I couldn't believe it. And I have to say that I know the one hit he made, they were all like, oh, well, it needed to be a flag. It needed to be a flag. I know this could be biased, but I don't think so.
He's had a few where it's the whole, it looks like what we've seen. And I know, the one against the Chargers last week, Chargers fans are pissed because they're all saying Derwin James is getting called for that flag, and it's the whole, what's it look like and all that kind of stuff. But when you see, it's one of those where I'm glad that he hasn't been flagged for it, because when you look at it in slow-mo, he is turning his shoulder. He is trying to aim at the right spots and the legal hitting zones and all like that. Yeah. But I know which play you're talking about, Joe, but it is just such a breath of fresh air to see one of the young safeties on this roster be a striker from depth. And that's something that's going to be just paramount for the deep. But on the good side, what other things excited you two on Thursday?
So again, and I got to give credit where credit's due. I'm not the biggest Joe Barry fan, but like him employing these blitz packages that kind of gave our secondary a little bit of breathing room because they are young. Like that was huge, obviously. And then when they were actually expected to make a play, they were able to. They weren't exhausted. Obviously Goff under pressure is not very good, like a lot of quarterbacks. So I've wanted to see that because we have such playmakers up front and on the edge. And so actually using them to their strengths instead of being like, hey, Preston, you go downfield and cover a wide receiver. It was so fun and refreshing to watch. I'm like, this works. Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
We've all said it.
Yeah. At first, when I was reading through the notes, I was kind of confused at what the hell Mike was talking about with the 3-and-1 stats. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, I get it. The only thing that I can think of is maybe during the 2-minute, LaFleur was having a conversation with the refs, and the refs somehow said, I don't think it's going to get overturned.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be wasting your time to
That's
throw
what
the
my
flag.
dad assumed.
Yeah, so that's the only thing I can think of. And didn't they challenge something else earlier in the game before that, or was it after that?
No, I don't think
it was before that, but I do think it was just a weird, like a whole melt. It just was like the worst time with the worst like couple of seconds it could have happened.
Yeah.
Everyone was just like off and on different pages or something. And
then I think what really like kind of like made him not really push it is we got the ball anyway because it was fourth down anyway.
Exactly.
But like I said, I'm selfish. I want the guys to get their stats when they can.
Yeah.
And there was a benefit to, it's not like he was challenging interception that would have lost us like 40 yards of field. It's not like one of our guys might have caught an arm punt or anything like that. We would have gained like 9 or 10 yards of field position. And on top, Preston gets another sack, fumble, and recovery to his record and stuff. So,
I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
I know.
I think that's the only thing that comes to mind is, because you said they would have had the 2-minute timeout anyway. So, they always talk to the refs when that stuff before they make a decision. And that's the only thing I can think of is one of the guys on the officiating team said, well, it was really a bang play. Yeah.
And like Miranda said, it was just a confluence of like 5 different things that went into it that just kind of made him go, well, whatever kind of thing. And so, it that probably does definitely factor into it where he has time. And so because the only timing mechanism, he just has to get the flag out there before the next play is run. So, and since his team's on offense, it's like, okay, like, so you're right. Like, he's probably looking at it like, oh, like, we got the ball back. It's not like it got returned for a touchdown or anything. And so I'll just let it go kind of thing and stuff. So, but yeah.
Gary had a hell of a game. I really, I know it pains me to congratulate a former Cyclone, but Anthony Johnson Jr. is really looking, really looking good. Yeah. I'm hoping they don't pull the old, now we got Rudy Ford and Darnell Savage coming back. So just ride the bench, Anthony, and, you'll get out there when we can get you out there. So I'm really hoping they don't do that. It's great to see a striker. I mean, I could see him and Darnell matching together because then you can have Darnell roaming the field. You can have Anthony just, making the hit. I really hope that stands out there. Yeah. These young guys, Carrington is really looking good. I know he's going to have his up and down moments. You're always going to have that with a 7th round guy. Same with Anthony. You're going to have those moments where he's not going to be good, especially with Anthony because he's only been playing the safety position for a short amount of time. So, I know you've got wrote down here cocky confident for Carrington right now, which is great because I think one of the things that one of the people they were comparing him to was Jair. Well, when Jair gets rolling is when he starts getting cocky. And, if Jair can come back for this Chiefs game, which, knock on wood, I'm kind of hoping that's why he didn't play against the Lions,
I think
is so he can
Like,
be
I
fully
feel
healthy for the Chiefs.
good. Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping if both those guys can be out there, and it doesn't hurt that Corey Ballantyne is having a hell of a season as a reserve
Yeah.
guy. So, for everybody thinking that this team was going to go downhill once Rasul was traded, the secondary has been one of our best positions. And we've still
Yeah.
got Eric Stokes coming back. He's got what, one more week? Or is this week they can
This?
start?
No, he could have come back because he was on the same timeline as Savage. So
Okay,
they just yeah.
Yeah. So he could be coming back. Now, I know they're going to slow him down a little bit more because
Right.
he, it's still injuries in the legs and he's been dealing with it. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Monday they start opening his window. Now, not necessarily maybe for the Chiefs game, but for the following game. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this secondary can do going forward because they're all young guys. Jair is the oldest one in the cornerback room, and he's 26.
It's insane.
So and let's face it, if we can have Jair and Carrington where they both can be put on an island and not this secondary would be sick.
It's insane. Yeah.
So,
especially against this version of the Chiefs because they don't have the same receipt. It's Kelsey and it's Kelsey and everybody else at this point.
You got Kelsey and a couple like bag boys. I mean, their receiving core is crap. Let's be real. I mean, Pacheco is good as a running back, but
you got MVS doing MVS things and
Tony
stuff like that.
I think they said Tony is going to come back or something, and I'm like, okay, not scared.
Right. So the running back situation and Kelsey, because I don't care what team it is, what year it is, the Packers always struggle against a tight end.
And he's going to just go right up the middle and just murder us somehow. Let's hope not. That's just what he does.
Well, that's why I'm hoping that Anthony Johnson can make that next step because he's the guy that I would want on a Kelsey because I know he's not going to shy away from hitting him.
Yeah, true.
So, if he can I'm trying to think. You guys might remember a little bit more than I do, but didn't he have a pretty decent 40?
Oh yeah, Anthony? No, he does. It's mostly that he's smaller, and he's on the smaller side for a safety, and he like you said, he's right now. I think he's played about a year and a half worth of safety. So yeah.
So if anybody can do it, he probably could be the one that could line up on. I imagine they'll have Quay out there if Kelsey goes in the flat or whatever. But if I'm running the defense, I'm probably putting Anthony on Kelsey as much as I can, unless Anthony it's one of his down games and you just got to say, all right, guy, we'll move you off and we'll put somebody else out there. But like I said, this secondary is really giving hope, especially again after the Rasul trade. And if we can get everybody back healthy, I don't think it's going to be as big as weakness as a lot of people thought going into it.
Agreed.
That's a really good way to put it.
Except for the safety position. We're always going to have that weakness because I know Darnell has been playing better, and I know I've just been hyping up Anthony Johnson Jr., but like Mike has said for the last, however many weeks, we've got nothing but special teamers on the back end, and it has been
a whole other conversation too. Special teams still.
Yeah. So what else you got on here, Mike, or do we need to go ahead and just go to special teams?
Well, it's the usual stuff. The Barry defenders are still out there. They're saying like, look, it was a good offense, and they did it again. They held them down again, and blah. I'm like, okay, but like, were you guys watching the plays in between when Rashawn went Hulk mode? Like every play Rashawn or someone didn't make a play, someone was running wide ass open through the secondary, and I mean, Miranda, are you seeing anything? Like that's the thing is like I don't need to rip the players who are doing good things to still point out that your system sucks. And that's the thing that I'm like, I don't know what some of these people are looking at it.
I think I've like said that verbatim before. And it's like, okay, first of all, you're watching the game, and it doesn't mean that like he calls a shitty scheme that a player is not going to still play well and kind of like put lipstick on a pig. That's kind of what I think is happening a lot. These young guys are just stepping up, and of course, again, going to some of the other teams, maybe they're making it look a little better, but overall, I'm just not a believer. Like there's still so many times I scratch my head and I go, why are we doing this? Why are we putting 3D linemen right here? The run defense obviously is just bad in general. We did okay the other night, which was fun, but the other day, but I don't know, next, Sunday.
That's why I say I'm still not a Barry truther, because yeah, he's done all right. And I've said this before on the show that if there was some way we could demote him from defensive coordinator just to be like linebacker coach, I'd be happy, because I know he can coach up linebackers. That's what he's been known for his whole career. But I really don't see him going from defensive coordinator. Yeah. So they're going to have to go a whole nother route.
Yeah.
And as much as I hate to say it, I think Jerry Montgomery's going to have to, go along with him. I really do hate saying that, because, he's a Hawkeye alum, and I just, I can't let him go. His son's currently on the Hawkeye roster, so it, really.
I knew that. Cool.
But I think something's got to change there, because I don't think between the two of them they're getting the full potential out of this defensive line. I know you're not always worried about stats with a 3-4 defensive line, but there's no way, with the way Kenny Clark is getting, penetration on these offensive lines, that he should have the bare minimum of sacks or the bare minimum of tackle for losses, or, whatever. Same way with, TJ Slayton. He should be a Gilbert Brown type guy. Throw him in the middle, let Kenny on one side, Devontae or Carl Brooks or whoever on the other side, and just let those three feast. But for some reason, they're not doing it. I don't know if they panic. I don't know if it's just schemed up, whatever. Now, I know you've got it wrote down here, Mike, but I've been saying this ever since I saw that the Packers drafted him, that Carl Brooks reminds me a lot of Mike Daniels. He's got the, Mike came in as an undersized defensive lineman, and they turned him into a hell of a pass rusher and run stopper. And Mike has always had the attitude and all that. So I'm kind of seeing flashes of that with Carl Brooks, where he's an undersized defensive lineman. He's been able to show flashes. If they can continue developing him on that, I think he'd be a good opposite bookend for a Kenny Clark, if they keep TJ in the middle and not move Kenny into the middle. Wooden has been up and down. I think he's going to struggle a little bit, because he's also Mike, a little bit better about Rashawn's size. Rashawn coming out was 6'3",
they were kind of
275.
listed wise, they were about the same size, honestly. So
you're asking a lot for a guy to be a down lineman in a 3-4 system that runs maybe 2 down linemen once in a while, that is the same size as the guy who's standing up and rushing the passer beside him. And I'm not downgrading it. I think he's done solid in what he is. I just think they're kind of misusing him, unless the plan is to get rid of Barry and go into a 4-3 system, which hey, Phil Parker from Iowa runs a hell of a 4-3 system. I'm telling you. But so it just, there's got to be some kind of change, because they're misusing the talent they have.
Yes. That's been my complaint for pretty much Joe Barry's tenure. We've had an incredible roster on defense. And look, how many first rounders do we have, aside from, I know a lot of them are hurt, but it's in like 8 or so for former first rounders or something. It's like, we should be just a nasty fear defense. And like, yes, on paper, I feel like we're right now somehow like in the top 10, which is nearly comical.
I don't know. Mike, look up the stats.
Yeah. Where are we? Because I feel like I looked it up the other day after that game, and I was like, no freaking way.
By
Mike
counting
usually has-
stats,
Oh,
they're
Lord.
doing way better than they are by the advanced stats. The advanced stats, they're still down in the mid-20s, which feels
Okay,
more.
well, that feels
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, exactly. And it's the whole, that's where counting stats can lie, because it's like,
Yes.
yeah, like, because I like DVOA because it counts for like game situation. I mean, the way that even the Barry truth is, I'm like, what did Barry's defense do against the Broncos when the offense finally did something? They went and let them score the game-winning field goal right down the fild. So it's like, it's the same, it's the same shit, different day kind of thing. It's kind of what you were pointing out, Miranda, is like, I think the reason some of the young guys look so good is they don't know any better. They're just so like excited to play and stuff. They don't know like, and
they're
my
just
whole
like
thing
little
with Barry,
puppy dogs. We're like, we're just gonna go out and wag our tails and slap some people down and hope for the best. And sometimes it works out, and everyone's like, "Yes, Barry, you're so smart." And it's like, it's not necessarily on him.
Yeah,
it makes you wonder if Greg Williams is pulling a Jerry Gray and just saying, "All right, this is what the play call is, but you go out and do this."
Yeah,
right.
He's doing it a little bit more subtly though, but like that's my whole thing with Barry is I'm like, I understand the concept of not wanting to get beat by the big play and stuff like that, but I hate that his whole defensive mentality is like playing outfield, where it's like your first step is always back, like everyone's first step is back, and you just see it where guys who make plays on this defense are because they happen to be in a position to be an aggressor. Rashawn was an aggressor. Kenny was an aggressor on Thanksgiving. But like, why do we get beat on outside runs? It's because everyone's like, oh, like, wait, let's take a step. And, Quay is getting reached in the inside block or something like that. And also, I mean, that's why I'm sure, Miranda, you're the same way, but that's why Joe and I are so excited seeing Anthony Johnson Jr. come downhill and look like the two guys who've worn 36 before him and been Packers Hall of Fame level players, because he brings that edge and brings that physicality to that opens up different layers of the defense. And so I know I'm sure the three of us could beat this horse until it's rotted, turned to dust, and grown as a flower out of the earth. But I mean, it just goes without saying that it's like, people say that like, oh no, he's doing fine, he's calling a great game, he's making adjustments, and in my head I don't even respond to most of them, because I'm like, if you really think he's so great, fine, so be it. But I don't think that Rashawn just absolutely kicking someone's ass or Kenny doing the same is praise for the defensive coordinator. Like,
no,
that's just a dude. Like, that's what football comes down to, is it's a physical confrontation. It's my guy against your guy, and you need your guy to win. We need our guys to win. And against, like I said, and that's the thing where stats can lie, because against the Chargers, they didn't really win. Like the oblong sphere bounced a certain way that favored the Packers. But against the Lions, they did win 60-40 or something like that. They won enough times to win the game. So, like I said,
my fear is that they're going to somehow justify keeping Barry. They're going to say something like, oh, he put up well with the injuries that he was dealing with, and we're going to give him one more shot. And I just don't see it. I don't see how they can, because eventually LaFleur's going to have to be looking at it. Okay, well, if I don't make a change, it's my ass on the line.
Well, I was just going to ask you that question. Like, at what point would Goot even step in and say, like, buddy, you got to make a decision. Like, you either got to tell his ass to leave, or like both of you, if you can't be, if you can't tell your buddy he's got to go, how does that play out? It's just,
I have this sneaky feeling that we're not going to see any major changes until Murphy is retired.
I don't think so. I agree.
I think a lot of them are worried that, okay, well, if I make this change now and then in 2 years Murphy is retired and we got a new, CEO,
They're gonna do
is
it
he
again.
yeah, is he gonna say, "Okay, well, we're gonna just wipe the board clean and go with this"? So is it fair to the players to say, "Okay, well, we just put you in a new system. Now 2 years later, we gotta put you in a whole new system because this guy wants a change."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those catch-22s that it on one side they're going to have to be, LaFleur's going to have to be saying, all right, well, if I don't do this, it's going to cost me my job. Goody's going
Mhm.
to have to say, if I don't do this pretty soon, this is going to cost me my job.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a catch-22, but I do think that they are looking. I I do think that they are thinking about it. I think they're gonna say, all right, well, we're gonna give you one more year because of this, because of that. And I do think there are gonna probably be some changes with coaches more than
Mhm.
coordinators. So I
Okay.
think, like I said, maybe Jerry Montgomery is let go. Maybe uh I'm blanking on names for the coaches, but like the
Couple of
inside line, yeah,
assistants.
they're gonna get rid of those guys compared to this one and say, all right, well, we got you the guys that you want for your system. If it doesn't happen this year, then you're gone.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens from there. But I really don't think there's gonna be any changes until the last part of the year, unless the Packers go for the rest of the year.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I,
Yeah.
I just choose not to hold my breath over it because I don't want to suffocate over Joe Barry.
I know. Yeah. 'Cause
But
we might.
yeah. But Miranda, we're now to your favorite part that you edged on earlier, special
Special
teams.
teams? I just before we even get into, any specifics, it's I was a big Bisaccia fan. Like when we hired him on, after seeing what he did for that just completely mess of a Raiders team and situation that he went into, got them to the freaking playoffs. I was like, oh my God, like this guy is going to be great. I can't believe we like have him as a coordinator. We need special teams help. We need like, CPR at this point. And I don't know if this is true, but I read somewhere, it was probably Twitter, that he's like the highest paid special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're ranked like, near the dead last. And it's like, that doesn't sit well. And it shouldn't for anybody.
My thing is I think he brought in too many of his
Yes,
guys.
I agree.
Instead of trying to build it out to build out the rest of the roster, he brought
Yeah.
too many of his guys in. We're
Yep.
starting to see changes. Levitt's gone.
Hmm.
Uh, I could see some more coming up, but I agree. I think, but then it's hard to say because they've looked better than they have the last few years with the special team.
Right.
We've got a competent returner now on kick and punt return.
Finally.
We've got, well, so far a competent punter. So far, what he's done with Anders has been miraculous
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Now he's just got to tune a little bit more. No more Dewara on the wing on a kick or
Oof. Yeah.
on a field goal. No more Tyler Lancaster types on there, So if he can start cleaning that up, but I also have a feeling that they also gave him the assistant head coach
Assistant.
title,
Yep.
and I think it's kind of like the Stinovich thing. If you're drawing him away from his duties more than he should be, it's going to start hurting his side of the ball.
True.
So if you can say, all right, I think I can handle it this time, just go deal with the special teams, we'll go from there. I also think because Anders was such a project, he's had
Hmm.
to use too much of his time to work on Anders
Yeah.
that it's kind of hurt elsewhere. And again, I think he had too many which, to be honest, you kind of want that. You want a guy to say, all right, this is my guy. I want him to come in here because he knows my system. He's going to help, with
Right.
the other guys. But I think there were just too many of them that he was relying on.
I agree. Yeah, it did seem like he was very heavy on like taking his pick of the litter, kind of from like a fire sale from Las Vegas. And I like his overall like culture, and he's kind of just like, he's got that hard ass, like kind of a Dan Campbell-y vibe, which we kind of need because Matt LaFleur is like just not. So I like
He
that.
is something else. I've told this
Yeah.
story on the pod before, but when I was up at OTAs, there was one day that it was pouring down rain and they were
Oh my
going to
God.
practice. And I was going to Lambeau so I could get one of my jerseys.
Sweet.
And I was coming down Oneida Street, which is right in front of, in between the Hudson Center and Lambeau. And most everybody's in the car, they're the shuttles to go back and forth. And here's this guy standing at the intersection, full Packer, like sweatsuit and everything. It's friggin' Rich
Stop
Bisaccia.
it.
He's walking from
great.
Lambeau to Hudson Center in the pouring down ash, and I'm not
He's
talking
it's
like
just
a
water.
sprinkle.
Like, who cares?
This guy has a hell of a friggin', side to him. So I was excited for him to come in, and I think you're
Me
right.
too.
He's kind of like that Dan Campbell that, obviously he's not going to go out there and say, well, we're going to bite their kneecaps off or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
he is somebody that I think if it came down to it, he's going to run out and punch him in the face for messing something up.
Yeah.
But it's another thing that I think that if we can start meshing the crew together on that, it'll turn around. Which, like I said earlier, it's night and day compared to the past.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree.
It'll help when some of the guys like Savage and Stokes get back, because then you won't have like, and that's one thing Goot has done a good job of, is churning the bottom of the roster to find a lot of these, like, get in Eric Wilson from, off the scrap heap, Keyshawn is starting to get hot again on returns. He didn't have any chances this week, but we saw him heat up the last couple weeks before that, going into Thursday's game. So hopefully with the return to health of some of the like higher up players like Ja, Stokes, Savage, Dre, you get better play, because kind of like what Joe's saying about just Bisaccia coaching, you have guys who are supposed to play special teams like McDuffie and stuff. They can just play special teams and all. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, like the biggest complaint I had is like, Anders, I need you to overcome the operation around you being not so great. Like, like, and where I'm disappointed in Anders not overcoming that, I'm very pleased with what Whelan has shown, that he's like kind of Johnny on the spot the last 3 weeks. He's like dug some out of the dirt. He's reached basically across of Anders to grab one, and he reached like back to his right. So he's kind of just been like a knuckleball catcher, just catching them everywhere and putting it down for Anders. So
now I have to give Anders credit a little bit, because I was completely against a 63-yard try. I thought that was just a little. I understand you're in a stadium. I understand he's got the leg, which, by all accounts, he could have made it. 63 yards for years was the record for a field goal attempt. Because this guy has issues that if he starts missing, he starts overcompensating. So I have to give him credit that once he missed, he didn't let him affect it the rest of the game.
True.
So I have to give him credit. I didn't pay attention to it too much to see whether it was just he didn't put enough behind it. I didn't pay attention to see if the snap was a little bit off. I didn't pay attention to any of that on the 63, but I was kind of against that one anyway, just because I was like, you're asking too much right now. Just punt it, do whatever, because basically that's all they did anyway, was they punted the ball because the guy returned it for a good chunk of yardage anyway. So just, whatever. Let's not force this onto the kid. Now, a couple years down the road, he's got a little bit of time under his belt, whatever. Throw him out there for a 70-yarder for all I care. Just don't ask that of him to, as a rookie who's already having issues to begin with.
I will say, like, before the season started, I knew we were going to have this whole young team and whatever, but I was like, he was like at the top of my concern list. And then he's come out and been, I know he's had a few misses. He missed the extra point the other day, whatever, but he's been like not a concern. And
Right.
my dad calls me out all the time because, he doesn't follow a ton of the off season like I do. And I was just going, oh my God. I was giving him reports from like camp and stuff. I was like, he missed like 3 field goals. What was a 30 something? What was a 40? And so every time he makes one, he's like, well, you see, he literally says "ope," which is funny because I'm looking at that right now. Because he's very Wisconsin, and I'm like, hey, I'm just going with what I saw, man, and I'm glad he has like risen above it because he has. I mean, overall,
I think we all had our trepidations with
I
him
think
because,
so.
and then like I argue with Wendell Ferreira a lot, he always points out, well, this is why you don't draft the kickers. It's like, Wendell, for where he was drafted and for what the issues were coming into the season, I would draft this guy 9 times out of 10, no matter what.
Sure.
I mean, he's looked a hell of a lot better than Moody, who went in the friggin' 3rd round. That, let's maybe we'll say we don't take kickers before the 5th round or something, but whatever.
Yeah.
But Mike, what else we got? We probably should get Miranda going so she's not.
No,
stuck
yeah,
with us
that's
lunkheads
really gonna
too
be
long.
it. We'll just we celebrated Dallin Levitt is finally gone.
Yeah. And I loved how LaFleur said that it wasn't because of the penalties. Well,
right.
I'm sure in LaFleur's mind it was 90% other things, and the 10% was when I was finally able to go to Brian and be like, "Can I do it now?"
Exactly. Yeah. I've seen him mad. We all have, but I was like, oh boy, he's angry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He looked like any person with a kid. Like,
yes.
We've been over this thing and you still did it. Like it was that
it really was.
that confrontation. Yeah. But Miranda, we always give a MVP and an LVP. Miranda, who was your MVP from Thursday's game?
As much as I want to go Jordan Love, I mean, I gotta go with Gary, of course. I can't say enough. I do love the growth I saw from Love, but Gary just wrecked, and he stopped the Lions offense that is ranked. I just wrote an article about that. Maybe I think they're ranked like 2nd right now behind the Dolphins. Like that's impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's fair. I there's like a handful of them that could be considered an LVP this week, and obviously he's one of the top ones. My MVP is probably I'm bouncing back and forth. Like you, I kind of want to say Jordan because this has been one of the best games we've seen out of him. I'm going to go with a guy that, a lot of us have been bagging on a little bit because I do think he had a hell of a game, is Christian Watson. I think it's about time that he does get his recognition for what he did. But now let's build on it. Let's stack the successes. Let's go out and do more. But I am going to give an honorable mention to the waxing Gibbous because now it's 13-0 against the Lions. So
I agree.
That's the real MVP right now.
We had the sun. The sun was on our side against the Chargers, and now we had the moon. I don't know. Hey, we're playing at night next week. Maybe it's the Stars' turn.
There you go.
What the hell's gonna happen?
Maybe it'll be the flyover. The Goodyear blimp is gonna throw Mahomes off next week.
We need a shooting star like right during like a pivotal moment where he's going to Kelsey.
Do we know if there's any meteor showers next week or?
Oh no, I will Google after this. I'll let you know.
Well, seeing that you guys have taken the 2 other good options, thank you. You've left me with Jordan Love, and I say that as no consolation. Jordan, like we covered earlier, Jordan had a heck of a game. It was awesome to see him have this kind of performance, especially because his first 2 primetime games this season have not gone well. Like the first one, the Thursday night game, he just got the crap knocked out of him because the O-line wasn't healthy. And then he had kind of a dud, honestly, against the Raiders. So it was good that in the national spotlight, he goes out, has this game, shows why LaFleur and Gutekunst just constantly, gush over him and laud him with praise. So great to see. And I gotta just give my Wolverine a shout out because, it's not that I was worried his career was over or anything, but for Rashawn to have a 3-sack game on Thanksgiving
Oh,
And then just his like man love for Jordan. The two of them, they
I
could
love
be bookends for the next great Packers team, and it just warms my freaking heart. But
what was he quoted as saying? Is I'm getting tired of crying around you, motherfucker.
Like, I'm sick of crying for you guys or something. It was so awesome and like real, and it was great. Yeah.
It's my wife says it because we met at Michigan, and she just
Aw.
says like it's so cool that like, you know, like I know a lot of people gave him crap for it, but like the first memory of him being a Packers is just bawling on draft day, and then he's just kind of played it forward ever since and stuff. So it's just cool to see him like have this career as a pro. I'll go first for the LVPs. Matt Orzik, you're literally brought in to be the steadying force on the special teams, and this is 2 weeks in a row you've been snapping it into the Mississauga. So get your shit together and stop making Whelan have to work overtime. Miranda, who you got for your LVP of the week?
It just seems so obvious to go Levitt, but he already got the award because he's fired. So. I don't know. That's a cheap shot, but there it is.
It was during the week leading up to the game, so we will take it. We will put a gold star on that one. That's a great one, Miranda.
No, I was gonna offend Joe here and go with JRJ just because he didn't have the prettiest game.
Yeah. It's fair. I mean, we've had to give out our LVPs to some of our favorites too.
I know.
It
happens.
I'm gonna go with the Fox crew. Where the hell is Jordan's turkey leg?
And why did we have to watch Greg Olsen finger bang a Tedurkin on my TV?
Why? I can tell you why. I'm surprised a lot of people haven't put this together. That's exactly what John Madden did when he was given the turducken on live TV. Is he did the same thing. That's how he was taught how to cut it. Was you just take your hands like this and you go right down the middle and pull it apart.
You don't need silverware, I guess. Oh.
Yeah.
All I could think is like I put myself in the one, I was laughing at Burkhart, kind of like laughing it off because he's kind of like, you're really doing it, are you, dude? Like kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I put myself in the shoes of the cameraman, and I was like, man, that's supposed to be for the whole crew. Like we're all supposed to get some of that.
But there's a clip.
Insane.
You probably can find it on YouTube or something. But one of the first years that they started doing the turducken with John Madden, he did the exact same thing. They had it brought out to him, and he just sat there and he did his normal analysis while he was doing it. Well, this is what you do here, and you put your hand in here, and you throw it.
Love it.
So, but why the hell, Greg? Yeah, but why the hell didn't? I mean, even Jordan was upset about it. Did you see his face at that?
Oh yeah, like he looked like my son when I tell him he can't have the toys.
I know. And like Erin Andrews, she seemed so awkward just telling him. She was like, "Just go celebrate with your team." Like,
we made a $10,000 donation to your favorite charity.
Yes.
Well, I don't. That's nice and all, but where's my damn turkey leg?
I know.
Yeah. It was definitely that was a memorable one.
And then supposedly somebody came out with the story that they only prepared two. One was what they gave to Greg Olsen to do it. Yeah. And then the other one they had already pre-stamped with the Lions logo on it.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know if I believe that.
No, it seems odd. Why would you?
Because I think I still would have handed it to him because they just trounced the Lions. Why not let them tear it up?
Just put a line through the Lions.
Well, turn it around and rip the thing.
And most of the time those things have 6 legs anyway. That's the John Madden special. You couldn't have just ripped it off and handed it to him and said, here you go. Considering the rest of the games all did it. The other 2 games, all the MVPs of the game got their turkey legs. Yeah. Except for Jordan.
Yeah. Poor guy.
But that's going to do it for our resounding recap of just a wonderful Packers win on Thanksgiving. Miranda, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. It was great having you on. Awesome. I know Joe will be asking for you to come back for draft season. But Miranda, please let us know what you're working on. Anything that you want to plug here while you're on with us?
I just I write for Draft Countdown, and I just cover, sadly I don't just cover the Packers, which would be a lot of fun, but I cover just the whole NFL landscape. And every Sunday morning, typically my articles come out through the season. And yeah, this week, I think this morning, my article was just about like young, hot, kind of up and coming coordinators. And next week, I don't even know what I'm writing about next week. I just kind of, I watch the games as an excuse to watch Red Zone all day and then curate something. So it's great.
It's a good process. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
I
think so.
Joe, anything else from you this week, or
nope? Miranda, again, like Mike said, we appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
Thank you
to be here with us. And I know we'll, like Mike said, we'll probably have you on sometime during the draft, so we can get your expertise on that. But other than that, I think we're good, Mike. I think we can finally let her go back to her kid.
Yep. But we just want to say thank you so much again, Miranda Marie.
Yes.
Follow her on Twitter at Mirda, Mirda. She wrote.
Yes.
Like she said, she's putting out great work every week. When she figures out what she's gonna write, that is not a diss. That is a very realistic understanding.
Yeah.
We've all been there, but
we have that now
again,
with
Miranda.
our website.
I know. That's my bad.
Right? Yeah.
But that's gonna do it for this recap episode. I'm at Kawano Mike. Joe is at Iowa_Joe86. The pod is at Ohana_Packers. Please follow our website, ohanapackers.org. You can find all of the streams of our podcasts, all of our blog posts. Like Joe mentioned, we have guest writers who are coming up. Both Joe and I will be posting our own posts too regularly. Please give us any comment, feedback on our stories. We read all of those. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a subscribe, a like, comment, positive, negative. We take them all. The Packers are one game closer to 500 with a chance to get to 500 against the Chiefs next week in Lambeau. Give you a happy Thanksgiving and a hearty Go Pack Go.